A Trump divorce. That's the focus of tonight's angle. Oh, the polls and the reviews are in, and the president was masterful last night in tone and substance. Now, he was both serious and, at times, a little humorous.
We've ended weaponized government where, as an example, a sitting president is allowed to viciously prosecute his political opponent, like me. How did that work out? Not too good. Not too good.
As predicted, Democrats, though, put on a buffoonish display. It was all paddles and pouts, clutching their insipid round signs on sticks. They look like a bunch of lunatic homeless people who stumbled into an auction house. Trump's just driven the left stark raving mad.
We all go a little mad sometimes. Haven't you?
The slogan of Refuse Fascism is in the name of humanity. We refuse to accept a fascist USA.
Elon Musk, and what the hell are you doing here in America? Go back to South Africa!
Okay. Now, not only are liberals for war and against female athletes, apparently they're okay with telling immigrants, legal immigrants, that they don't like to go back to Africa. Okay, I just want to know the rules. Now, these are angry, petty people, and many of the same people who accused President Trump of not upholding governmental norms and protocols back in 2020. But they couldn't even stand up when the president walked into the gallery last night. Now, as you'll recall, Republicans didn't agree much with Obama and Biden, not too much over 12 years that they were in office as president, but Republicans nevertheless stood politely and applauded for the office of the presidency when they walked in for their addresses. But not these miscreants. Last night, they were happy to lay waste to protocol and tradition. So they behaved like spoiled children, like such sore losers that many of them couldn't bring themselves to stand and applaud for their fellow Americans who have and are suffering. Moments that moved millions of Americans watching to tears.
Thank you, DJ. With us this evening are Lakin's beloved mother, Allison, and her sister, Lauren.
Oh, I love the song I couldn't stand. But again, they showed their true colors. And by the way, the pink, it didn't help soften their hardness. And by comparison, Trump came across as more likable and relatable than ever, even when he was calling them out after he mentioned his new HHS secretary.
Since 1975, rates of child cancer have increased by more than 40%. Reversing this trend is one of the top priorities for our new presidential commission to make America healthy again, chaired by our new Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy, Jr. With the name Kennedy, you would have thought everybody over here would have been cheering. How quickly they forget.
Well, but the truth is, as we've said for many years, this Democratic Party has next to nothing in common with the party of JFK or even Bill Clinton. It's morphed into an amalgam of fringe ideologues and radical anti-American maniacs. And most of them truly loathe this country, which is why they insist that America is systemically racist and why they treat criminals like George Floyd like folk heroes and drag queens like cultural icons. But the good news? More voters are on to their twisted game, and last night was just another nail in their political coffin.
I look at the Democrats in front of me, and I realize there is absolutely nothing I can say to make them happy or to make them stand or smile or applaud. Nothing I can do.
Ain't that the truth? So as liberals sat on their hands or their tepid applause and clutched their paddles, Trump laid out a bold vision for an America First future, with a recap of a lot of the progress already made.
Illegal border crossings last month were by far the lowest ever recorded. The media and our friends in the Democrat Party kept saying we needed new legislation, we must have legislation to secure the border. But it turned out that all we really needed was a new president.
So from slashing federal waste and cutting red tape to rebuilding our maritime industry and bringing peace to Ukraine, President Trump held nothing back. It was the longest speech on record of its kind, but it didn't seem that long. I kept getting pinged from friends across the country. Here are a few of the messages. Best Trump speech ever, Laura, or I could listen all night. And then, of course, how pathetic the Democrats are. Well, I couldn't disagree with any of that. We are watching history unfold with this Trump administration, ladies and gentlemen, and we will never see anyone like him again. At one point, Trump even tried to extend a hand to the pouty Democrats in the gallery.
So Democrats sitting before me, for just this one night, why not join us in celebrating so many incredible wins for America? For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
Now, we're not holding our breath for the Democrats to get involved. Remember, don't forget, this time last year, political experts were counting indictments and counting Trump out. So no matter how much resistance he faces going forward, look, Trump's presence on the Hill last night, just his presence alone, was itself a breathtaking achievement. And that's the angle.
We need to test Trump for steroids because he just set the State of the Union record, 99 minutes, beating Bill Clinton by a mile. The vast majority of the country thought it was presidential, entertaining, and inspiring. Voters say Trump's speech gave them hope. Take that, Barack. But one side of the room missed out.
I look at the Democrats in front of me, and I realize there is absolutely nothing I can say to make them happy or to make them stand or smile or applaud. Nothing I can do. For just this one night, why not join us in celebrating so many incredible wins for America? For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
Trump said Democrats will never change, and they proved him right. Right when he got started, Democrat Al Green, with his big old ponytail, started screaming and shaking his cane.
To 525 on a map that reads almost completely red.
Chair now directs the Sergeant-at-Arms to restore order. Remove this gentleman from the chamber.
Imagine you tried that at work. The boss is giving a big presentation in the boardroom, and you pop up yelling and screaming and menacing him with your cane. You get fired like that and thrown into a straitjacket. But you do it in Washington, and everyone's like, oh, yeah, it's the old guy with the pony and cane. But Al Green wasn't finished.
I have other things I'm protesting, and I'm also working on my articles of impeachment. This president is unfit.
Good luck with your articles, Al. You're getting censured, just like Adam Schiff. And he says he'd do it again.
I heard the speaker when he said that I should cease. I did not, and I did not with intentionality. It was not done out of a burst of emotion. I was emotional about it. I would do it again. I have to be candid with you. I'm not trying to in some way insult you. This is a matter of principle. This is a matter of conscience.
Weird Al Green spent all day working on that stunt. Not working for the people he represents, working on drawing attention to himself. If Green thinks he knows better, why isn't he president? Green was just in power. His crew blew it, so Trump was just elected to clean up their mess. It's like wrecking your car and heckling the mechanic while he's fixing it at the body shop. Remember when Joe Wilson screamed, "You lie," at Obama? And it was as if someone had spat on the Holy Bible. They said it was racist to interrupt the Messiah. Well, now it's racist to chant USA.
I mean, it felt like I was watching something in a history class of racists yelling at an elderly black man challenging the president of the United States.
Trump wasn't bothered by any of it. He kept cooking.
$1 million to improve the social and economic inclusion of sedentary migrants. Nobody knows what that is. $8 million to promote LGBTQI+ in the African nation of Lesotho, which nobody has ever heard of. $60 million for indigenous peoples and Afro-Colombian empowerment in Central America. $60 million. $8 million for making mice transgender. This is real.
Americans watching at home, if they don't watch Jesse Watters Primetime, shame on you. We're hearing this for the first time. $8 million to turn Mickey into Minnie. Gotta love it. Democrats didn't clap for doging that pork because that money got laundered through their very own NGOs. But the other stuff Democrats sat on their hands for was just crazy. Planting the American flag on Mars. Nothing. Catching terrorists. Destroying the cartels. Nothing. Bringing hostages home. No. They didn't even clap when Trump said he was putting a Democrat in charge of ending autism. What are Democrats, pro-autism? They used to say they were for the children. Well, Trump invited one girl who was partially paralyzed after a boy spiked a volleyball in her face. They showed no emotion. The party of women. When Trump surprised a high school kid, said he was just accepted into West Point, Democrats just sat there and stared. The Democrats turned their backs on veterans, women, children, rape victims. But the most despicable part of the evening was after Trump made a 13-year-old cancer survivor an honorary Secret Service agent. And the Democrats sat still and seethed.
Tonight, DJ, we're going to do you the biggest honor of them all. I am asking our new Secret Service Director, Sean Curran, to officially make you an agent of the United States Secret Service.
This thing. Black kid with brain cancer wants to become a cop. Trump gives him a badge. I'm not going to lie, I almost cried. Jimmy Fallon joked that they'd only clap if that boy became a girl. The Democrats can't show an inkling of humanity. They just watched cold-hearted like a gang of freaks. Are these people human?
For the record, and this is disgusting, the president made a spectacle out of praising a young man who thus far survived pediatric cancer, as if the president had something to do with that.
And I hope he has a long life as a law enforcement officer. But I hope he never has to defend the United States Capitol against Donald Trump's supporters. And if he does, I hope he isn't one of the 6 who loses his life to suicide.
The left thinks they're patriotic when they take a knee for George Floyd, but they won't even stand up for a black kid with cancer, or a hostage, or a mom whose daughter was raped and killed by a migrant.
It was truly an honor, a very surreal feeling to be sitting in that area to remember the life that Jocelyn had. I found it very cowardly that a lot of the Democrats didn't stand, didn't clap. They don't stand for us as citizens. They don't stand for our security. They don't stand for honorable things that we need in this country. And it's very disgraceful to us as U.S. citizens that those are the people that we have here in Congress.
Trump gave Democrats a lot of reasons to clap last night. The only time they did was to send your money to an unwinnable war on another continent.
The United States has sent hundreds of billions of dollars to support Ukraine's defense, with no security, with no anything. Do you want to keep it going for another 5 years? Yeah, you would say Pocahontas says yes. 2,000 people are being killed every single week. More than that. They're Russian young people. They're Ukrainian young people. They're not Americans, but I want it to stop.
Did you know that I'm more black than Liz Warren's Native American? I have my 23andMe, it's true. This lady lied about being Indian so she could teach at Harvard and wants to fight for Ukraine harder than she fights for you. And the ratings are in. 37 million Americans saw that.
The behavior of Democrats last night was completely disgraceful and demonstrated how severely out of touch they are with the American public. It was the most shameful moment in the history of presidential addresses in that beautiful chamber. The Democrats exposed themselves as the party of insanity and hate, the party that wants to put America last. They've allowed their Trump derangement syndrome to stop them from celebrating America and our people, and we will not allow them to forget that.
Even some Democrats were shocked by what went down.
To not stand for that little boy is aberrant and disgusting behavior. So they not only do they lose the high ground, but they shock the conscience, I hope, of many Democrats. And I know some Democrats who texted me.
Where's the Democrats' national pride? We're celebrating America's 250th birthday in a couple of years while Trump's president. You know he's going to go big. Are the Democrats going to make a scene at the birthday party? Because it's looking like they will. Biden said he ran for president to restore the soul of the nation. So where'd the Democrats' soul go? Tip O'Neill worked with Reagan. Gingrich worked with Clinton. Why can't Democrats work with Trump, or at least clap for the country? Last night it struck me. The Democrat Party is mentally ill. I'm always playing armchair psychiatrist. They're just sick in the head. We've been covering this party's struggle to figure out why they lost in November, and they still haven't figured it out. I don't even think they've hit rock bottom. Trump's just turned these politicians into a bunch of protesters. They don't look like a political party. They look like Code Pink. And if they can't acknowledge the problem, they can't fix it. Trump swept the swing states with half the cash Kamala had and 90% negative media while shackled with lawsuits. Almost every county got redder, and so did blacks, Hispanics, and unions and the youth. Trump seized the sweet spot of American politics, that red, juicy middle of the nation. The country agrees with him on almost every single issue. He is a man with a mission.
I believe that my life was saved that day in Butler for a very good reason. I was saved by God to make America great again. I believe that.
After last night's reprehensible behavior in the House chamber, one thing is very clear. The Democratic Party, they are a soulless, heartless party. And right now, they are a party with no message, frankly, no morals after what I saw last night, no leadership, no soul, and no vision as they stubbornly cling to their irrational hatred and rage and radicalism. They showed the country yet once again just how truly out of touch they are with everyday Americans. They repeatedly acted like petulant children. Democratic Congressman Al Green even had himself thrown out of the House chamber for that outburst, before, of course, announcing he was working on articles of impeachment. What a shock. Here we go again, as if this wasn't predictable. Take a look.
Health care has become wealth care for many people, and we can't afford to let that happen.
Is that the only thing that you're protesting?
No, I have other things I'm protesting. And I'm also working on my articles of impeachment. This president is unfit. He should not hold the office.
That's right. He is unfit for the office. That means Green. Anyways, little temper tantrum did not go over well with you, the American people. Even fake news CNN had a poll. 80% of viewers there found his behavior to be inappropriate. According to the same CNN poll, nearly 70% of the people that watched approve of what President Trump said, while a CBS poll was even better for the president, revealing 76% of Americans approved of this address. And when you dive deep into the issues, it gets even even better for President Trump. 77% of people that watched the speech approved of President Trump's plans for addressing waste, fraud, abuse, and corruption in government spending. 77% approved of his plans for immigration and the border. 73% approved of his plans for Russia and Ukraine. 65% approved of his plans on tariffs, which are reciprocal. But the Democrats, their unhinged behavior, it started before President Trump even began his speech. Earlier in the day, a truly bizarre, strange, awkward display of dozens of prominent Democrats simultaneously, seemingly, posting a video on social media attacking the president while using the exact same format, the exact same script. You can't make this up. Take a look.
That ain't true. That's what you just heard. Inflation is getting worse.
Meanwhile, Donald Trump has done nothing to lower costs for you.
To lower costs for you.
You really can't make this up. Contrary to what the Democrats said, President Trump delivered an incredibly powerful, uplifting speech highlighting his policies that will make our country stronger while celebrating everyday Americans with very heartwarming stories. But still, the Democrats, they couldn't even bring themselves to applaud or stand for any of it. They couldn't bring themselves to stand for Alexis Nungary, whose 12-year-old daughter was brutally murdered by two unvetted Biden-Harris illegals. They didn't stand when President Trump honored Laken Riley and her family, another young woman murdered at the hands of Biden-Harris unvetted illegals, her poor mother fighting back tears before the entire country. They refused to applaud a young man who lost his father and now is able to fulfill his dream. He found out last night he was accepted to West Point. Couldn't stand for that. They stayed seated when the president honored the life of slain officer Jonathan Diller. He was killed in the line of duty in New York City. That's his young wife on the screen there. They didn't stand when the president honored Corey Campotor, who sacrificed his life to protect his family during the shooting at the Butler, Pennsylvania rally. They refused to applaud Mark Fogel, his 95-year-old mother, who he was held hostage. President Trump made a promise he would bring her son home and held hostage in Russia until Trump secured his release, something Biden was incapable of doing. And maybe worst of all, they stayed seated and silent when a brave 13-year-old boy who beat cancer, had been battling cancer since he was 8, whose life's dream it was to enter law enforcement, was made an honorary member of the Secret Service by Sean Curran, the new leader of the Secret Service. At one point, Democratic Congresswoman Debbie Dingell even appeared, look at that, to roll her eyes while the president honored him. This is your modern day, take a good look. This is your modern day, radicalized, soulless Democratic Party. At their core, they hate Donald Trump so much that you couldn't show compassion for mothers that lost their children because of illegal immigrants or a child that beat brain cancer. And now, what are we looking at as a country? A party that is defeated, a party that is dead, a party that is heartless, and a party that is soulless. They represent everything that is radical and extreme. You know, they stood up in unison earlier this week for the right of men to play women's sports, but they can't be bothered for loved ones who lost family members. Now, in fairness, they did eventually find one thing to stand and clap for last night. More. We've already spent hundreds of billions. They want more billions for the war in Ukraine and endless wars to continue. Take a look at this moment between President Trump and Elizabeth Warren, who he affectionately calls Pocahontas. Take a look.
The United States has sent hundreds of billions of dollars to support Ukraine's defense, with no security, with no anything. Do you want to keep it going for another 5 years? Yeah, you would say Pocahontas says yes.
You're going to oppose the end of death and destruction and an attempt at peace in Europe, peace in the Middle East? That's soulless. That's what I mean when I say soulless, heartless, mean-spirited, out of touch. And they showed their true colors last night. And their behavior was so despicable, even some members of the liberal media, legacy media mob are agreeing with me. Take a look.
What we saw, the theatrics tonight in the chamber, are not being well received.
The Democrats came ready to fight back with their little paddles, okay? That is how you save democracy, by quietly dissenting or bidding on an antique tea set. It was hard to tell what was going on.
I will say, I think there were times when they should have risen. I think what Al Green did was despicable.
How they gonna snatch it back, Michael, when they holding up bingo or auction signs?
I was gonna say, well, thank you, Simone.
Can we talk about it?
The bingo signs were killing me. I don't know who thought up the bingo signs, but they should be fired.
Michael, this is an indictment, in my opinion, on the Democratic leadership.
Now, while some in the media acknowledge the disaster that unfolded for Democrats, others over at MSDNC, they chose to hit another new low, mocking the ceremony that honored this young child that beat cancer. Take a look at this. Just take this in.
For the record, and this is disgusting, the president made a spectacle out of praising a young man who thus far survived pediatric cancer, as if the president had something to do with that. This was in the midst of him praising DOJ. The DOJ cuts, among other things, have cut off funding for ongoing research into pediatric cancer.
And I hope he lives and the life he wants to live. He wants to be a cop. He knows what he wants to do. And maybe when you have childhood cancer, that crystallizes for you. And I hope he has a long life as a law enforcement officer. But I hope he never has to defend the United States Capitol against Donald Trump supporters. And if he does, I hope he isn't one of the 6 who loses his life to suicide.
And Nicole, didn't you vote for the candidate that supported the 574 riots, or maybe you call them insurrections, in the summer of 2020? You know, Nicole, the ones that killed dozens and dozens of Americans, injured thousands of police officers, pelted with bricks, rocks, bottles, Molotov cocktails, the riots that caused billions in property damage, the riots that your candidate said that they won't stop, shouldn't stop, and she wouldn't stop supporting the rioters. Make no mistake, last night was a disgusting display from a bunch of soulless people with no message, no direction, no morals. Even the party's, quote, leaders participated in this. And despite the Democratic Party and their pathetic efforts, well, Donald Trump continues to deliver for the American people, reiterating his threat to the terrorist group Hamas regarding hostages. He's saying it is, quote, over for you, and there will be hell to pay if they do not release the bodies and the hostages, in a new message on Truth Today.
Trump proved their point, his point, that Dems hate good things if politically it makes them look worse. It's got to be weird to go to bed every night hoping for bad things to happen to good people. Trump then read off a list of incredible wastes of money that the Dems have been responsible for. It sounded like a mental patient had stolen my Amex card. Think about it. Right now, Americans across the country are thinking about how much they owe in taxes, and Trump reads this list off. I bet you could hear Jerry Nadler's butthole clenching into a sun-dried tomato, which, given his issues, probably an improvement. Overall, Trump crushed it, but so did America, because when Trump does great, that means the country does great. That's what happens when you have a patriot in charge. The personal and the national align, which also means if Trump does poorly, so does the country. But that puts smiles on the face of Democrats. So what's it like to be them, to be the bad guy, to fight a smile when you see a kid with cancer hug a Secret Service agent, to deliberately ignore the family of a murdered American female? We don't have to imagine what that's like. We saw it last night. The pirates have boarded, and the Americans think it's glorious, but the Dems chose to walk the plank. Let's welcome tonight's guest. For Lynch, she's giving up heroin. Co-host of America's Newsroom in the 5, Dana Perino. We need another chair for his fluffy hair. Co-host of Fox and Friends Weekend, Charlie Hertz. She's my favorite Tudor since Henry VIII. Host of the Tudor Dixon podcast, Tudor Dixon. And she gets turned on by reading eye charts. Host of Kennedy Saves the World podcast, Kennedy. Dana, I feel like the Democrat Party is in a situation where it's kind of dead. Like, they either have to be against everything good or agree that these things are good, and they won't do that.
It's like they need to declare bankruptcy.
Yes.
And start over.
That is such a good point.
I know, I just thought of it.
It's a great, sometimes just thinking on your feet is so much better.
It's so refreshing. I did think at some point the Democrats would hold up a sign saying "Uncle" because he was crushing them over.
But if you do that, Ilhan Omar will want to him.
Exactly. Oh, it made perfect sense.
You were about to say that.
I was about to say that. The other thing is that you had to think of the Democrats who were at home watching, going, "Is this is what my party has become?" And so I honestly think maybe declaring bankruptcy and just like clearing the decks, starting over might be their best bet. One other point that I just thought of. The Democrats, if they ever hope to win again, need to win over who Trump won over, which is the independents and the great middle, the party of common sense. And they are now so far marginalized that they're almost completely irrelevant. You are seeing numbers of like 76%, 80%, 90% approval and agreement on issues. They have nowhere to go.
This is such an interesting point, Charlie, and thank you for that, Dana. The 80-20 split is happening with all of these issues and now with approval, and yet the Dems still say, we'll just stick with the 20. I mean, it's incredible. It's like they're purposely choosing the losing hand.
And not only is it an 80-20 split, there isn't a single issue where it's not, where it's the opposite in their favor. Mm-hmm. And, Democrats have always been so good at telling the story. And they have everything, all the advantages. They have the media, they have culture, they have academia, everybody on their side helping them tell the story. And then all of a sudden, Donald Trump comes along, and a lot of people, a lot of Republicans too, complain that, well, he opines about everything. He doesn't have to express his opinion about absolutely everything. Well, this is how you wind up like flooding the zone and dominating every single story out there. He owns every narrative, every story, to the point where you put up a 13-year-old kid who wants to grow up to be a police officer, which in this weird time is somehow really unusual, but this is what's going on here. And Democrats are all upset, and they can't even applaud a cancer patient, 13-year-old cancer patient who wants to be a police officer.
Joe, Trump should have played a prank on the Dems and brought out a kid who wants to grow up to be a trans activist.
That would have been hilarious.
It would have been hilarious. You know what? I thought it was funny in my head. Tudor, good to see you as always. It's been a long time. What did you make of last night? I noticed that I think the Dems have a problem with speeches that don't have symbolism or virtue signaling. Instead, he just read facts. It drove them crazy.
It drove them crazy because it was also joyful. They don't understand joy. So I wore pink tonight in honor of them because they were giving Mean Girl vibes to me. And just so they know, on Wednesdays, we wear pink.
Yes, very good.
That's the rule. But also, I kind of felt like at a certain point, Rashida Tlaib was going to take that little white board and write on there, Donald Trump is a fugly slut, and hold it up, because I'm like, this has to be what they're doing tonight. But they came off as Mean Girls, and I thought that was good because that's much more their brand than the white of last year.
Yeah, even the guys come off as Mean Girls.
Well, they are.
Yeah, they are. Kennedy, what's interesting...
Jerry Nadler's certainly been eating those Caltine bars, am I
right? Looks like he ate 5 Mean Girls.
Can I tell you a quick Jerry Nadler story? And I'm sorry to give you an aside. My precious daughter, when she was an 8th grader, they got to go to Washington, D.C. And a Republican congressman was kind enough to walk them around the Capitol and give them a private tour. And he said, I'm not going to take them to their congressman's office because it smells so bad and it would scar them for life.
That is the third stinky story about Jerry Nadler that I've heard in like a week.
Well, I think it's properly vetted now, Greg. So you can give that to Bob Woodward.
George Santos says he was the smelliest guy.
But a great kisser, George said, remember? Remember he said that.
And then James Comer said the same thing, that he stinks. There's something. It's true. When 3 people say it, it's true, according to research. Here's the deal. I feel like somebody's feeding the Dems bad info. Is there a mole in the Democrat Party? You know what? Don't smile when a kid with cancer gets his wish. Whatever you do,
that'll really stick it to him. You guys will look amazing.
Yeah.
So whenever you feel like you're gonna cry because you're overcome with emotion, just sit down and remain expressionless, like your face is as Botoxed as Nancy Pelosi's.
Yes.
Don't show any emotion at all. That'll be so great. That'll win people over. This is why Democrats lost, because they're snobs.
Yes.
You know, this is why they lost on the issue of populism and the working class. And here you have, just incredible stories. A steel worker, who was the chief volunteer firefighter with 7 children who fostered 40 kids. Right. And it's like, I'm in a puddle, I'm in tears, I'm so moved by this incredible American story, and Dems are sitting there like, no, I'm frigid. And
you're right, there's a snob thing. There's a snob thing. None of those 40 kids he fostered were trans. They don't count, Kennedy.
No, they don't.
They have to be. One of the best things that he said last night, and I love it, when he said that the kids identifying as trans is a big lie. Do you know how long I've waited for somebody to say that? That we know it's a big lie, and finally you can say that.
But they might think so too, because today nobody's talking about that.
Yeah.
There was a big line at a joint session of Congress for a president of the United States to say that. Think if that had happened, 2 years ago, Biden wouldn't have said it.
Yeah.
Biden was asleep.
Yeah, he would have said, "What's with kids and trains?" Kids, I don't care. If kids want to be on a train, let them be on trains. I love a good train. Transsexual. I'm a transsexual. I'm a transsexual.